Have you ever felt completely confused when an Aquarius man suddenly disappears without warning? One day he is engaged, curious, and responsive. The next he becomes distant, silent, and seemingly unreachable. Most people immediately assume the worst. They think he has lost interest, found someone else, or is slowly ending the relationship. And because of that fear, they begin chasing. More texts, more questions, more attempts to force a response. But when it comes to an Aquarius man, chasing is often the exact mistake that pushes him even further away. What looks like emotional withdrawal is often something entirely different. For many Aquarius men, silence is not punishment, it is not rejection, it is not a relationship test. Instead, it is a psychological system reboot, a period where he disconnects from external demands so he can reconnect with his own thoughts. Aquarius is naturally wired toward intellectual processing. When life becomes overwhelming, his first instinct is not emotional expression. It is isolation. He retreats into what can best be described as a private mental laboratory, a place where he sorts through ideas, problems, goals, and possibilities without interference. The mistake many people make is treating this withdrawal like a relationship emergency, but to him it feels more like maintenance. The more complex his world becomes, the more likely these silent periods appear, especially in today's hyper-connected world where constant stimulation never seems to stop. Understanding this single truth changes everything. His silence is not necessarily a sign that he wants less connection. Sometimes it is simply the way he preserves his ability to connect at all. To understand an Aquarius man's silence, you must stop viewing it as an emotional event and start viewing it as a cognitive process. Most zodiac signs process stress through conversation, reassurance, or emotional support. Aquarius often does the opposite. He processes through observation, analysis, and distance. His mind is constantly absorbing information from the world around him. Every conversation, every problem, every responsibility gets stored and examined internally. Over time, this creates mental clutter. Just like a computer eventually slows down when too many programs are running, his mind can become overloaded. That is when the withdrawal begins. Not because he wants to disconnect from you, but because he needs to reconnect with himself. Think of it as intellectual defragmentation. He temporarily removes external distractions so he can organize the internal chaos. During this period, social interaction can feel exhausting to him. Even conversations he normally enjoys may suddenly feel like additional noise. This is especially true in today's world, where constant notifications, social media updates, and endless digital stimulation compete for attention every second. The Aquarius mind craves innovation and information, but it also requires solitude to process everything it absorbs. The more responsibilities he carries, the more frequently these silent retreats may occur. Career pressure, personal goals, family obligations, and social expectations all contribute to the overload. What confuses many people is that these disappearances often happen precisely when life becomes most demanding, not when the relationship is weakest. From his perspective, isolation is not abandonment. It is recovery. It is maintenance. It is preparation for re-engaging with the world at full capacity. The danger comes when people interrupt this process. Repeated messages, demands for explanations, or emotional pressure can feel like someone constantly restarting a computer during an important system update. Instead of accelerating reconnection, excessive pursuit often extends the distance. The more pressured he feels, the longer he may remain unavailable. Once you understand that his silence serves a purpose, fear begins to disappear. You stop seeing absence as rejection and start recognizing it as part of his natural operating system. And once you stop interpreting his silence as rejection, something remarkable happens. You begin to discover a powerful advantage that most people never use: the psychology of high-value neutrality. Once an Aquarius man enters his silent withdrawal phase, most people react emotionally. They panic, they overanalyze, they search for hidden meanings in every unanswered message. But the people who maintain the strongest connection with an Aquarius man do something very different. They practice neutrality. Neutrality does not mean pretending not to care. It means refusing to let fear dictate your behavior. The moment you start chasing, your focus shifts away from your own life and becomes centered on his absence. Ironically, that shift is exactly what weakens your position. Aquarius men are naturally drawn to people who possess independence, self-direction, and emotional self-sufficiency. When you constantly seek reassurance during his withdrawal, he may interpret it as dependence rather than affection. Remember, his retreat is designed to reduce external pressure. If your response creates more pressure, the retreat often lasts longer. This is why high-value neutrality becomes so powerful. You are communicating something without saying a single word. Your actions send a message that says, I respect your space, I trust myself, and my happiness does not depend on your constant availability. That message feels incredibly different from what most people offer. Many people unintentionally communicate scarcity. Their behavior says, please come back so I can feel okay again. High-value neutrality communicates abundance. It says, I'm already okay, and I hope you're okay too. And paradoxically, emotional independence often increases attraction more than emotional pursuit ever could. Aquarius energy naturally respects freedom. When you demonstrate that same freedom, you become easier to admire and more difficult to forget. This doesn't mean playing games. It doesn't mean creating fake distance. It means genuinely investing your attention back into your own growth. Instead of counting the days since his last message, focus on becoming more engaged with your own mission, community, and purpose. The healthiest response to his silence is not waiting, it is living. Because when he eventually reappears, the most attractive thing he can discover is that your world never stopped moving simply because he stepped away for a while. But neutrality alone isn't enough. The real secret lies in understanding how to mirror an Aquarius man's need for intellectual space without appearing cold, resentful, or disconnected. And that's where most people get it completely wrong. One of the most effective ways to handle an Aquarius man's withdrawal is by understanding a principle known as mirroring. Mirroring does not mean copying his behavior out of spite. It means matching the energy of the situation with emotional intelligence. When he becomes less communicative, many people immediately increase their efforts to maintain connection. But Aquarius energy rarely responds positively to pressure. The harder you push, the more resistance you often create. Instead, practice the intentional pause. If his communication slows down, allow yours to slow down as well. Not as punishment, not as manipulation, simply as respect for the rhythm he has established. This creates something Aquarius men deeply appreciate: space without drama. Remember, Aquarius is often more connected to ideas than emotions. He values freedom not because he wants distance from people, but because he needs room to think. When you mirror that need for space, you communicate understanding at a level that words alone cannot achieve. This is also the perfect opportunity to invest in your own intellectual growth. Read books, learn something new, join a community project, explore interests that challenge your mind. Aquarius men are naturally attracted to people who have their own passions and independent ambitions. The goal is not to occupy your time until he returns. The goal is to build a life that remains meaningful whether he is present or not. Emotional stability becomes incredibly attractive because it signals strength. It tells him that your mood, confidence, and sense of purpose are not controlled by his availability, and that creates a fascinating dynamic. The less your happiness depends on him, the more comfortable he feels moving closer to you. Why? Because freedom recognizes freedom. Independence respects independence. When both people feel free to pursue their own passions, the relationship becomes a source of inspiration rather than obligation. This is the hidden power of mirroring intellectual space. You stop fighting against his nature and begin working with it. And in that space of mutual understanding, attraction often grows naturally without anyone having to chase it. Eventually, every Aquarius man emerges from his period of solitude. But what happens next can either strengthen the connection or destroy all the progress you've made. The re-entry phase is where patience gets tested the most. Eventually, the silence ends. The messages return. The conversations restart. The Aquarius man who seemed unreachable suddenly reappears as if nothing unusual happened. For many people, this moment feels like relief, but it also creates a powerful temptation. The temptation is to immediately demand answers. Where were you? Why didn't you reply? Why did you disappear for so long? While those questions may feel justified, they often create exactly the kind of emotional weight Aquarius men were trying to escape in the first place. Remember, from his perspective, the withdrawal was not necessarily a relationship crisis. It was a maintenance cycle. If you treat his return like a courtroom trial, he may begin associating reconnection with stress rather than comfort. This is why the re-entry phase requires a different approach. Instead of demanding explanations, offer casual warmth. Welcome his return without turning it into an emotional investigation. This does not mean ignoring your feelings. It simply means choosing the right timing and emotional tone. Aquarius men tend to respond better to curiosity than accusation. Rather than focusing on what happened during the silence, focus on what is happening now. Share something interesting you discovered. Talk about a new project. Mention a book, article, or experience that inspired you. Aquarius energy naturally gravitates toward fresh ideas and engaging discussions. The goal is to create a positive emotional environment around reconnection. Think of it this way. If his withdrawal was a system reboot, then his return is the startup sequence. The startup sequence works best when there are no immediate system overloads waiting for him. When you respond with calm confidence instead of accumulated resentment, you create a space where communication can flow naturally again. Ironically, the less drama attached to his return, the more likely he is to feel safe staying connected for longer periods. He begins to associate the relationship with freedom, acceptance, and intellectual companionship rather than emotional pressure. And that foundation becomes incredibly important for what comes next, building a relationship rhythm that can survive these cycles of withdrawal and return. The biggest mistake people make is treating every withdrawal as a temporary problem to solve. The strongest relationships with Aquarius men emerge when both partners learn to build a rhythm that includes freedom, solitude, and personal growth as permanent features, not temporary exceptions. The strongest relationships with Aquarius men are not built by eliminating periods of withdrawal, they are built by understanding how to live with them. Many people spend years trying to change an Aquarius man's nature. They hope that if enough love is given, enough patience is shown, or enough reassurance is offered, the withdrawals will eventually disappear. But sustainable relationships are rarely built on changing someone's core wiring. They are built on understanding it. Once you accept that solitude is part of his natural rhythm, everything begins to feel less personal. His need for space stops feeling like rejection and starts feeling like a predictable season. Every healthy relationship develops its own rhythm. Some thrive on constant communication. Others thrive on independence and trust. Aquarius relationships often flourish when both people have room to disappear into their passions without fear of judgment. This creates a powerful sense of emotional safety. Neither partner feels pressured to constantly perform, explain, or justify every moment of personal space. Instead, both people understand that temporary distance does not automatically mean emotional distance. This mindset dramatically reduces unnecessary conflict. When withdrawal is expected rather than feared, anxiety loses much of its power. Trust begins replacing speculation. Understanding replaces overanalysis. The relationship becomes less about monitoring each other's presence and more about supporting each other's growth. Aquarius men deeply respect people who possess their own sense of purpose. They are often most attracted to partners who continue evolving regardless of relationship status. In many ways, the healthiest Aquarius relationship resembles a partnership between two explorers. Both people pursue their individual missions. Both people grow independently, and both choose to reconnect along the way. That shared independence creates something surprisingly rare, attraction that survives because neither person feels trapped by the connection. The relationship becomes a source of inspiration rather than obligation, curiosity rather than control, freedom rather than dependency. And when that happens, his periods of silence no longer threaten the relationship. They simply become another part of the rhythm that keeps it alive. But beneath all of these strategies lies one final truth. The real secret isn't learning how to survive an Aquarius man's silence, it's understanding what his silence ultimately reveals about the strongest kind of love. After everything we've discussed, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. An Aquarius man's silence is not the real challenge. The real challenge is what his silence reveals inside you. When someone withdraws, every insecurity suddenly becomes louder. Questions begin appearing. Am I important enough? Did I do something wrong? Is the relationship falling apart? And yet, those questions often have very little to do with the Aquarius man himself. They are reflections of our relationship with uncertainty. This is why some people experience his silence as unbearable, while others remain calm and centered. The difference is not the Aquarius man. The difference is the level of trust each person has developed within themselves. Aquarius energy often acts as an unexpected teacher. It challenges people to become emotionally stronger, more independent, and more comfortable with uncertainty. It asks a difficult question. Can you remain secure even when constant reassurance is unavailable? Can you continue living fully while another person temporarily disappears into their own world? If the answer is yes, something remarkable begins to happen. You stop treating love as a source of emotional survival, and you start experiencing it as a choice between two complete individuals. That is the foundation Aquarius men often respect most. Not emotional perfection, not endless availability, not constant validation, but authenticity, freedom, trust. The irony is that the moment you stop fearing his silence is often the moment it loses its power over you. His withdrawal becomes information rather than devastation, a temporary phase rather than a permanent threat. And that perspective changes everything. Because lasting attraction rarely grows from emotional dependency, it grows from mutual respect for each other's individuality. In the end, the strongest connection with an Aquarius man is not built by chasing him when he disappears. It is built by creating a life so full, so meaningful, and so authentic that his temporary absence never stops your personal evolution. And when two people meet from that place of freedom, the relationship no longer feels like a cage. It feels like a shared adventure. Have you ever experienced an Aquarius man's silent withdrawal? Share your story in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more psychology and relationship insights. And remember, the strongest relationships are not built on control. They are built on trust, freedom, and the courage to let each person remain fully themselves.